start chapter number 11, and this is about motivating and rewarding employees. Right? We have 4 learning objectives for this chapter, starting with the first one, which is about define and explain motivation. Second, explain the early theories of motivation. And third, compare and contrast the modern theories of motivation. And fourth, the contemporary issues in motivating employees. So let's start the first learning objective, which is about define and explain motivation. We hear this word every day. I'm more motivated, I'm less motivated. Let's get motivated to complete this task. But what is eventually motivation? Susan, any idea what is motivation? You can just share your opinion. The inner voice. Yes, good. Eva, what is motivation in your eyes? The power, right? The internal power, the internal drive, the internal desire is referred to as motivation. Now let's discuss this in detail. Motivation is your internal drive, your internal desire, your internal voice that triggers 3 things. The first thing is it triggers your energy. Second, it gives clear direction. And third, it sustains your behavior. So in simple words, motivation is your inner voice that brings energy in your behavior towards doing certain tasks. Second, it is the internal voice that gives a clear direction to your behavior and what you should be doing, how you should be doing, why you should be doing, right? And third, it sustains your behavior. So in a nutshell, the internal voice that triggers 3 things in your personality. First of all, it brings energy in your actions. Second, it provides direction to your behavior. And third, it sustains your behavior. What is sustaining behavior? Susie? What is sustaining behavior, or sustaining in simple words? What is sustaining? I think you can just share. Lavender, what is sustaining? Sustaining? To maintain, to keep on doing, right? So to cut the long story short, before I move forward towards explaining the early and modern theories of motivation, let's conclude here that motivation is your internal voice, internal drive that triggers 3 things in your behavior. First of all, it gives energy to you. Second, it provides a clear direction. And third, it sustains your behavior. So, providing direction, energizing, and sustaining behavior is called motivation. Now keep this in mind, and we will explain the early theories of motivation and the modern or the present day theories of motivation. So let's start with the early theories of motivation. Compare and contrast early theories of motivation. So the first early theory of motivation is called Maslow hierarchy of need. Have you heard of this theory before? Hilda, have you heard of this? Ashley? So you heard of this theory, right? Can you briefly express the idea, what is this theory all about? You can share anything that comes to your mind.
I think Maslow's hierarchy is mainly about divides our human needs in different levels.
Good. Good. So Maslow's hierarchy of need is basically an early theory of motivation which divides the needs in a pyramid shape. And at the base or at the bottom of the pyramid, the needs are called physiological need or basic needs. The theory says that once you want to satisfy your needs, start with the basic needs. And the basic or physiological needs are the needs such as food, water, sleep, and shelter. These are the needs without which human cannot survive. Eva, can you survive without water? Owen, can you survive without food? Susan, can you survive without sleep? Cannot. So you see, these are the basic needs. Remember the second name of this physiological need. The second name is called basic needs. These are the needs without which human cannot survive. Maslow says that once you achieve your basic or physiological need, then you get further motivated towards achieving safety needs. What are safety needs? Safety needs such as feeling safe, protected, and secure from harm. Right now, you are feeling safe and protected. This is the need of human to work in an organization where he is protected from external and internal harm, where he feels safe. It is the second most requirement of a human: safety. You need a safe and secure environment to work. You need a safe and secure classroom to sit, right? And so forth. Maslow said that once you achieve the basic or physiological need, then you are further motivated towards achieving the safety needs. And once you achieve the safety needs, you are further motivated towards achieving social needs. What are social needs? All of us have social needs. We need to talk to friends. We need to make friends. We need to be valued. We need to be respected. We need to be loved. We need to go out in the societies. We need to go to the parks. We need to talk to our friends and families. These are our social needs. Man is social animal. So we need social needs. Okay. The good thing or the bad thing is that some people stops at social needs. They don't climb further higher. Once they get basic need, safety need, and social need, they're okay with that. They do not want to have esteem needs and self-actualization. Let me give you a classic example from today's world in the context of social needs. Do you know a whole new generation in Japan referred to as hikikomori? Have you heard of this word, Jay? Hikikomori? Agnes, have you heard of hikikomori? Hiyako? You should search about this. Now this is a whole new generation in Japan. They're afraid of coming out in the society. They spend years inside their rooms. They get the physiological, meaning the food and sleep needs and safety need, that's it. They do not have any social needs. They are afraid to come and talk in the society and face people. They're afraid. You should search about this hikikomori. It's a new whole generation in Japan. Right? They do not have social needs. They are afraid of talking and coming out in the society. Some people stops at social needs. But some people, after achieving their social needs, they are further motivated towards achieving esteem needs. What are esteem needs? Esteem needs are the needs where we want to be valued, where we start to think that we should be valued. Or these are your needs which gives you some value, some respect, right? Some people want to be valued, thus they are further motivated towards it and they work hard. They achieve certain designation in the organization for which they are valued. They invent something new for which they are valued. They publish something good for which they are valued. They do something right for which they are valued. Once these people achieve esteem needs, meaning they are valued in the society, they are further motivated to climb to the highest level of needs as per the Maslow hierarchy of need, and the highest level of human needs are called self-actualization. Self-actualization is a stage where you start to feel the best version of yourself, such as the top entrepreneur Jack Ma, Elon Musk. When you invent something new, when you give something great or good to the world, so you feel good about it, right? These are the highest level of human needs as per the Maslow hierarchy of need pyramid, right? Maslow said that if you want to address, if you want to attain, if you want to complete your needs, first of all start with the basic needs: food, shelter, and sleep. Once you get the basic needs, then you should be further motivated towards achieving the safety need. Once you achieve the safety need, you should be further motivated towards achieving social need. Once you achieve the social need, some people are further motivated towards achieving esteem needs. Once they achieve esteem need, some people are further motivated towards achieving self-actualization need. And this is the pyramid. You see, the physiological needs, the second name of these needs, remember it, right? The second name is basic needs for survival. These needs are required for your survival. Safety needs, feeling safe and secure. Social needs, love, belonging, and friendships. Esteem needs, feeling confident and respected and valued. And self-actualization, becoming the best version of yourself. Any question from Maslow hierarchy of need? So the first early theory of motivation is Maslow hierarchy of need. The second early theory of motivation is called McGregor theory X and theory Y. McGregor says that there are two types of employees in an organization. The first type of employees are called type X, and the other type of employees are called type Y. Type X are those type of employees who have little ambition to work. They dislike the work. They dislike responsibility. And type Y are those type of employees who are already motivated. They like work. They like responsibility. Now I have a question from you. Eva, if we talk about type X or theory X, meaning those type of employees who dislike work. So do you need a strict control over them or a lenient control over them, or non-strict control over them if they dislike the work? Good. We need a strict control because they are not motivated to work, so we need a strict control. On the other hand, Bella, if the employees type Y, they are already motivated, they like responsibility, they love work. Do we still need strict monitoring and strict motivation strategies, or we need simple monitoring, right? So let me conclude. McGregor theory X and theory Y says that there are two types of employees, type X and type Y. Type X are those kind of employees who don't like work, and type Y are those type of employees who like work. So those type of employees who don't like work, we need strict control over them. And those type of employees who already like the work, they're already motivated to work, you don't need to have strict control over them. For example, if I give an assignment to this class to write 1 page of literature review by next class. And only Owen, do not write it. So I'll text you, Owen, send me the work. I'll email you, Owen, please complete the work. This texting and emailing and messaging you is strict control, because you are not motivated to work. But I will not disturb the other class because they have already submitted the work to me on time. Right? So this is type X and type Y. Type X employees, Tristan, need strict control. Type Y, they are already motivated, they need not a strict control strategies. Right? Any question from McGregor theory X and theory Y? Any question? Arya, any question from McGregor theory X and theory Y? No, right? Agnes, any question from? No. Good. Let's move forward towards the third early theory of motivation. This one is very tricky. The Hasberg two-factor theory. Remember that in the previous learning objective, according to McGregor, we had 2 sets of employees. In Hasberg, we have 2 sets of factors. In Hasberg two-factor theory says that, let's read first and then I'll try to explain it. The Hasberg two-factor theory states that job satisfaction and dissatisfaction originates from 2 distinct sets of factors. To keep employee happy, you must address hygiene factor as they affect job satisfaction. And to truly motivate them, you must add motivators because motivator create satisfaction. Now, it says that in an organization we have 2 sets of factors. Hygiene factors and motivators. Hygiene factors are those factors that brings dissatisfaction at work. And motivators are those factors that bring satisfaction at work. Now, what you should be doing as a manager, and you should be fixing the hygiene factors. Why you should be fixing the hygiene factor? I have a technical question. Susan, why you should be fixing the hygiene factors? Why we should be fixing the hygiene factors? The hygiene factors. Why we should be fixing it? First of all, what is hygiene factors? Hygiene factors are those factors that brings dissatisfaction at work. For example, if your relationship with your supervisor is not good, will you be satisfied to work? No. If the company policies are very strict, bad policies, strict policies, will you be satisfied to work? No. If your relationship with your supervisor is not good or unhealthy, will you be satisfied to work in an organization? No, right? If your salary is low, will you be more happy, satisfied to work? Of course, no. If your personal life is affected, the work-life balance, meaning you only have work, no life. The work-life balance, we should have balance, right, between work and life. If you do not have a personal life, only work, will you be satisfied? No. Security, if you are feeling insecure, working in an organization, will you be satisfied? No, right? So since hygiene factors, as we discussed in detail, are those factors that brings dissatisfaction. So why we should be fixing hygiene factors? Because if we don't fix hygiene factors, employees will remain dissatisfied at work. So we need to correct hygiene factors because we need to reduce dissatisfaction at work. Ashley, next technical question. If the employees remain dissatisfied and they keep on working with dissatisfaction, what will happen? Will the company achieve its goal? If an employee works with dissatisfaction, meaning he is not working effectively and efficiently. So, if an employee is not working effectively and efficiently, he is not achieving the goals of an organization. So that's why we need to fix hygiene factor. Next important thing that you need to keep in mind that even if you fix, Hilda, even if we fix hygiene factors, it does not motivate an employee to work. Tristan, this is very tricky. Even if we fix the hygiene factors, it stops dissatisfaction, right? But it do not motivate an employee. For example, Tristan, if your salary is very low, of course you are dissatisfied, right? If I as a boss fix that salary for you, so you are not dissatisfied anymore. But are you still motivated to work from 9 to 5? That is a different story. That is a different thing. So even if we fix hygiene factors, it is not a guarantee that employees will still be motivated to work. So in order to motivate or bring satisfaction at work, the Hasberg says the company should focus on motivators. Now let's talk about motivators. Jay, if you can achieve a lot in an organization, so will you be satisfied or dissatisfied working with that organization? If you can achieve so much, if you can achieve higher salary, you can achieve self-actualization, if you can achieve good status, if you can achieve multiple things working with that organization, so you will be satisfied or dissatisfied? Satisfied. If you can grow in an organization, if you can grow as in terms of your communication skills, if you can grow in terms of your financial status, if you can grow in terms of your status, will you be motivated and satisfied or dissatisfied working with that organization? Of course you will be satisfied working with that organization. So now let's take one example. Salary, which is a hygiene factor. If it is low, employee complain. But if we fix the salary, the employee feel okay, but still not motivated to work from 9 to 5. That is a different thing. Recognition, which is a motivator. When given, employee feels happy and motivated. If you are being recognized, if your efforts are being recognized financially in the shape of title or in any other form, your services are recognized, you feel satisfied working with that organization. So the Hasberg two-factor theory says that there are two sets of variables or two factors in an organization: hygiene factors and motivators. Hygiene factors are those factors that leads to dissatisfaction at work, and motivators are those factors that leads to motivation and satisfaction in the work. So as a manager, your job should be to fix the hygiene factors. Why? Because it will stop dissatisfaction, but still it will not bring motivation. In order for you to motivate employees, you need to work on motivators. You need to promote motivators, right? So, to cut the long story short, two factors, hygiene and motivators. If we fix hygiene factors, you remove dissatisfaction. And add motivators, it creates satisfaction. Clear? Any question from Hasberg two-factor theory? Right, so the third theory of motivation, the fourth early theory of motivation is McLennan three-need theory. So what is McLennan three-need theory? McLennan said that people are motivated to work because of three needs. Because of their three needs. The first need is called need for achievement. The second need that motivates someone to work is need for power. The third need that motivates someone to work is the need for affiliation. Three needs. Need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation motivates an employee to work. Now let's start discussing the first need for achievement. Eva, if you want to achieve A in this class, right? So will you be motivated to learn the lectures, to come on time, to sit for exams, to present well, or you will be not motivated if you want to achieve A in this class? So will you be motivated in the activities of this class, or you will not be motivated in the activities of this class? If you want to achieve A in this class, so you will come on time. You will listen my lecture carefully. You will review all the material before exams. You will prepare for your presentation. Why? Because you want to achieve A in this class. That achieving A motivates you to sit in this class, to study hard in this class, and to present well. Need for achievement motivates you to perform. Need for power. Some people need power. They have the greed for power. They want to accumulate power. And if you remember correctly, in the past lecture, I explained to you there are different types of power. Coercive power, legitimate power, expert power, right? Coercive power, legitimate power, expert power, reward power. I hope you remember all those kind of powers. Now, some people are motivated to work because they want to get power. Power for what? They want to accumulate power because they want to implement their own rules, their own agenda. They do not agree with the current rules and regulations, so they want to accumulate power so that they can reach to a position where they can change it and implement their own agenda, implement their own framework, rules, guidelines. They need power. I remember quote comes to my mind relating to this power is a quote from Gandhi. Who is Gandhi? Who was Gandhi? Gandhi. You know Gandhi? Chloe, who was Gandhi? A famous Indian politician. How do you know about him? So you love history, you love politics? So you read a story about him. Gandhi once said, very interesting, Susan, he said, if you don't like a rule, still follow that rule. Serena, Gandhi said, if you don't like a rule, still follow that rule, reach at the top and change that rule. So some people need power. Why? Because they want to change certain rules. They want to implement their own version of solutions to different problems. They need power for it. Some people need power so that they can implement their own agenda, their own rulings, their own laws. That's why people need power. So keep in mind that those who need power, they are motivated to work for it. They are motivated to work for it and reach to a certain position where they can exercise that power. So the second element of need which motivates you to work is getting power, as from the McLennan need theory. The third need that motivates an employee towards working is the need for affiliation. What is affiliation? Daniel, what is affiliation? What is affiliation? It's easy as ABC. Susie, what is affiliation? Relationship. When you are associated with an organization is referred to as with affiliation. Likewise, I am affiliated with Wenju King University. So this affiliation, some employees, some people has a craze of joining certain organization. For example, I know many friends of mine who wants to join Tsinghua University. They want to be affiliated with Tsinghua or Peking or Oxford University. Why? It gives some prestige. Right? It is a great affiliation to have. It is not that easy to join Tsinghua University or Peking University or Oxford University. It requires a lot of efforts in terms of publishing, in terms of services, in terms of administrative works. You need to have a big, good, solid profile to join those kinds of organizations. So, some people are motivated because of affiliation, because they want to affiliate themselves with certain organization, so they work hard for it. They are motivated to working it. The McLennan, in simple words, McLennan 3 need theory says that people are motivated because of 3 factors: the need for achievement, the need for power, and need for affiliation. These 3 needs motivates you towards doing something, or these 3 needs motivates you toward working. Right? So in the early theories, it concludes the early theories of motivation. We have 4 early theories of motivation, starting with the first one, which is Maslow hierarchy of need. As per the Maslow hierarchy of need, Maslow said that if you want to satisfy your needs, start with the basic physiological needs. Then once you achieve the basic physiological needs, you should be further motivated towards achieving safety needs. Once people achieve safety needs, they are further motivated towards achieving social needs. Once people achieve social needs, they are further motivated towards achieving esteem needs. Once people achieve esteem needs, they are further motivated towards achieving self-actualization needs, and the pyramid ends with self-actualization, which is the highest level of need. Then comes after the McGregor theory X and theory Y. So McGregor theory X and theory Y says that we have 2 sets of employee X and Y. So X is the type of employees who do not like work. They don't take any responsibility. So if they don't like work, they don't take responsibility, we should have a strict control on them. McGregor theory Y refers to the set of employees who are already motivated to work. They like the work. So if they are motivated, they like the work, we need a non-strict or a less strict control over them. The Herzberg 2-factor theory. The third early theory of motivation is referred to as the Herzberg 2-factor theory. Herzberg says there are 2 factors: hygiene factors and motivators. Hygiene factors are those factors that brings dissatisfaction at work, and motivators are those factors that bring satisfaction at work. So your job as a manager, as a boss, should be to fix, to minimize, to handle hygiene factors so that you reduce dissatisfaction. But remember, even reducing dissatisfaction does not bring motivation. So you need motivators. In order to make employees satisfied, you need motivators. The 2-factor theory, hygiene and motivators. So you should be fixing hygiene factors to remove dissatisfaction, and you should be adding motivators towards increasing satisfaction. The 4th early theory of motivation is called McLennan 3 need theory. McLennan said that the 3 needs: need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation motivates you to work. Now let's come towards the contemporary theories of motivation. So what do you mean by contemporary? Or what is contemporary? What is contemporary? contemporary? Owen, can we start with you? What is contemporary? Anything that comes into your mind, you can share it bluntly, without being right. Huh? As of now. Yes, makes sense. Susie, contemporary? Contemporary. Alex? Alex, contemporary? Huh? What is contemporary? Good. It's about the present time. As Eva, we discussed the early theories of motivation. Now we are discussing the present, the modern day theories of motivation. So we have three present day or modern theories of motivation. The first one is called goal setting theory. Now what is goal setting theory? This is very interesting and very tricky as well. Let's read first of all. The goal setting theory means that people perform better when they have clear, specific and challenging goals instead of vague goals. It says that people perform better once they have clear and specific goals. Once the goals are measurable. Once the goals are quantifiable. But if they have vague goals, they're not motivated to work. If your goal is not clear, how you can be motivated to work? Right? So it says, first of all, we should have clear and specific and challenging goals instead of confusing or vague goals. When they understand and accept the goals, feel committed to it, and believe they can achieve it, self-efficacy, they become more motivated to work towards achieving those goals. Getting regular feedback helps them set their progress and stay on track. In simple words, what does it mean? To cut the long story short, or in simple words, what does it mean? It says, the goal setting theory says that once you have clear and specific goals, and you accept those goals, and you show your commitment towards achieving those goals, this acceptance and this commitment brings motivation. And then this motivation is affected by two external factors: self-efficacy and national culture. Then we need to get a regular feedback on these goals, only then we can achieve the goals. Now let me explain this in detail. Goals. In which function of management we set the goals? The short-term goals, the long-term goals. In which function of management we set the short-term goals and long-term goals? Lavender? In which function of management we set the short-term goals and long-term goals? You're right, in planning. In planning, we set short-term goals, long-term goals. As highlighted in mission statement and vision statement. And mission statement is towards short-term goals or long-term goals? Susan? The mission statement is towards short-term goal or long-term goals? And Chloe, the vision statement is towards short-term goals or long-term goals? The vision statement, vision statement. The vision statement. Long-term goal, you're right. Right? So the goal setting theory says that once you set the goals, and you're right, goals, we set the goals in the first function of management planning. The goal should be specific. Specific means which can be easily measurable, which can be easily quantifiable. Tristan, can you measure the number of stars in galaxies, in the galaxy? This is unmeasurable goal. So goals should be specific, measurable and quantifiable. You can easily quantify it, right? So once you set the goals are specific, meaning you can easily measure it, and then you accept those goals. You show commitment that yes, I will be completing these goals. Because even if the goals are set for you, if you don't accept those goals, you don't show commitment towards those goals, you will be not motivated to work. So first of all, we need to set specific goals. Then we need to show commitment towards accepting those goals. Yes, I accept these goals. I will achieve these goals. Right? So we accept the goals by participation. We participate in all those activities that are related towards accomplishment of the goals. So, in simple words, the goal setting theory says that we should be setting clear and specific goals. Then we should accept those goals, meaning that we should participate towards completion of these goals. Because once we set the goals, we accept and show our commitment towards completing this goal. This accepting brings motivation. This acceptance brings motivation. Now, the motivation is further affected by two external factors. The first factor is called self-efficacy and national culture. What is self-efficacy? And what is self-efficacy? Yes, and right? And what is self-efficacy? Maureen, can you try? What is self-efficacy? Andrew, can you try? What is self-efficacy? Good. It is your internal belief that yes, I can achieve it. Once you believe in yourself, once you believe in your abilities, once you believe in your skills, it brings motivation. But if you have no self-efficacy, you don't believe in your skills, you don't believe in your knowledge, it reduces your motivation to work. That's why you should have highest self-efficacy, because it will affect your motivation in either positive or negative direction. Now I have a technical question from Susan. How national culture affects motivation? How the national culture affects motivation? Okay, let me refresh with one sense. Do you remember we studied the Goethe-Hofstede framework, which shows 6 dimensions of culture: power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, long-term versus short-term orientation, indulgence and restraint, right? As per the second dimension of the Goethe-Hofstede framework, which says individualism versus collectivism, we studied that in China, people complete their goal, or they feel happy towards completing their goals when the goals are in group goals. And in USA, so China is collectivism. And in US we have individualism, meaning that people, employees tend to complete their goals individually. I have a technical question for you now. Imagine you are working in USA. So the national culture is USA, right? You are working in USA. And the goals designed by your organization are group goals. So will you be less motivated to work or more motivated to work?
Yes.
Why?
Because
Because
America is individual.
American society referred to as individualism as per the Goethe-Hofstede framework. So, if an individualism means they tend to complete their goals, they love to complete the goals individually. But if you are working in America and the goals are group goals, you'll be less motivated to work. Now flip the coin. Actually, if you are working in China, so the national culture now is Chinese culture. And the goals are are designed in a way that it should be achieved in a group. Will you be less motivated to work or more motivated to work? You will be more motivated to work because as per the Goethe-Hofstede framework, the Chinese culture, people tend to complete their work or the goals collectively. You see how national culture can affect motivation. It can either affect your motivation in a positive direction or it can affect your motivation in a negative direction. Right? Remember the Goethe-Hofstede framework, individualism versus collectivism. So, collectivism, China, and individualism, USA. So as we discussed in this case, if the goals are group goals, if the group goals are group goals, so if the goals are group goals, the supportive culture for these goals is China. If the goals are individual goal, so the supportive culture for these goals as per the Goethe-Hofstede framework is USA. I have shared something important for you which you should remember. Your exam is coming next week, right? So remember these important insights when I share something in the class. Please remember it, right? So let's come back to the goal setting theory. So the goal setting theory says that employees says that the goal should be clear and specific. Once you have clear and specific goals and you accept those goals, or you show commitment toward those goals, so this acceptance and commitments bring motivation to work, and that motivation is further affected by two external factors. The first factor is called self-efficacy and national culture. Self-efficacy means your internal belief, yes, I can do it, it further motivates you to do. But if your self-efficacy is low, it demotivates you to work. Same as in national culture. The national culture can either motivate or demotivate you to work your goals depending on the nature of goal. Next, we should be getting a regular feedback on the goals. Why we should take a regular feedback on the goals? Why? It is required. So you can set a time period where you can get a feedback monthly, quarterly, biannually, annually. Why feedback is required? Eva, why feedback on the goals is required? Why it is required to get feedback on the because the feedback keeps you on track. Let's suppose if you have set the timeline for achieving these goals as 1 year and you don't take any feedback and after 1 year you realize you couldn't complete your goals. So you need to take regular feedback because it keeps you on track. If you're not on track, you can expedite. If you're already on track, you can keep on doing what is required, right? So regular feedback is very important. So if you have clear goals, specific goals, if you accept those goals, it brings motivation. The motivation is affected by some factors, and if you have a regular feedback, it gives you higher performance. You can achieve higher performance. This is what the goal setting theory says. Any question from this? So in simple word, the goal setting theory says specific goals plus commitment plus belief, self-efficacy plus feedback leads to higher performance. This is what the goal setting theory says. Tahu understand? Right, let's start the second present day or modern day theory of motivation, which is called the equity theory of motivation. What is equity theory of motivation? The equity theory of motivation says that, alludes that, explains that, highlights that as an employee, you can face three situations at work. equitable situation, inequality in the context of under reward, inequality in the context of over rewarding. It says that employees are motivated once they are at the equitable situation. What is an equitable situation? Eva, if your inputs and output is equal to the input and output of Arya, it is equitable situation. What does it mean? Your input means the amount of time that you spend on your job. And output means the salary which you get as a result. So if you spend 9 hours on your job and get 20,000 yuan, so meaning your input and output, this is your input and output, right? Input 9 hours and output 20,000 yuan. If Arya, you also spend 9 hours on your job, but you get 10,000 yuan as an output. So her input and output does not match your input and output, right? It is inequality. But if she spent 9 hours and get 20,000 yuan, you spend 9 hours and get 20,000 yuan, so your input and output matches with each other, it is equitable situation. Meaning that the amount of effort one person is putting on the job and the salary he gets against that effort, if it matches with the input and output of another employee, it is called an equitable position. Now, let's take another example. Actually, if you spend 9 hours in an organization and you get 20,000 yuan, Hendrik, you spent 9 hours in the same organization and you get 10,000 yuan. So your input and output is less than the input and output of her. Correct, right? She gets 20,000, you get 10,000. In this case, it is inequality because you are under rewarded. Now, let's take it from your perspective. 9 hours, 20,000. 9 hours, 10,000. So you are over rewarded. It is also inequality. Now I have a technical question from you. At which position an employee feel motivated to work? Susan, at which position an employee feel motivated to work? If your input and output is equal to the input and output of another employee, this is situation number 1. And you know what is input, right? The amount of time, the amount of skill, the amount of energy that you put on your job, and output means the salaries, the benefits that you get from the organization. So this is situation number 1. Situation number 2. If your input and output is less than the input and output of another employee, and situation number 3, if your input and output is greater than the input and output of another employee. Now, let me further explain. The first situation is equitable situation. The second situation is you are under rewarded or over rewarded? Under rewarded. And the third situation is that you are over rewarded. Which situation motivates you to work? Over rewarding, under rewarding, or equity? Equity. So it does not motivate you to work, the over rewarding. You are getting more. It does not motivate you to work. The over rewarding. It motivates you to work. Okay. Now remember this. If this situation motivates you to work at this time of period, Meaning that Lavender and you, if I take your example, she spent the same amount of time as you. She gets 10,000 yuan, you get 20,000 yuan. This is our rewarding, right? And you are happy with it now. In the future, maybe I get more than you. You spend 9 hours, I spend 9 hours. You are paid 20,000 yuan, I'm being paid 40,000 yuan. Will you still be happy with this? You see, because if today you are happy with over rewarding, maybe in the future you will be dissatisfied with this when you are compared with another employee. So that's why the equitable position is the one in which employee feel motivated to work. I'm spending the same amount of time and I'm being rewarded for it equally as other employee. I'm happy with this for a longer period of time. Right? So the motivation comes in an equitable situation where your input and output matches with the input and output of another employee. You feel motivated to work and vice versa. If today you are happy with over rewarded, tomorrow you will be unhappy with this because if you are being compared with me and I'm over rewarded against you, you will be dissatisfied again. Right? Next, the final theory of motivation in the context of modern theories of motivation, the final theory is expectancy theory. As its name suggests, it is based on some expectations. If you expect as an employee that if you put some efforts, those efforts will improve your performance, and that improved performance will bring some rewards, and those rewards are worth having it, you will put more effort and you will be motivated to work. For example, the expectancy theory states that people are motivated when they think their efforts will pay off. Actually, if you think that even if you study for 10 hours a day in this class for this MGS 2030, you will not get A, will you be motivated to work? You will not be motivated to work. So once you think that your efforts are going to pay out, you feel motivated to work and vice versa. If they believe that working harder will help them perform well, and that performing well will earn some rewards, and those rewards are worth having it, you'll be motivated to work. In simple words, people work harder or people are motivated to work when they believe their efforts will lead to performance, and that performance will lead to some meaningful rewards, and those rewards are worth having it. Now, let's take a look at this exhibit 11.8, which is very, very important. The expectancy theory has 3 parts. Remember these 3 parts: part A, part B, and part C. Tristan, these 3 parts are very, very important. Part A, part B, and part C. Part A shows effort and performance linkage. See here, part A shows the effort and performance linkage. This is part A, right? So it shows this effort and this performance linkage. And this is called expectancy. Part B is called instrumentality. Part B is called instrumentality. And instrumentality is about the performance and rewards linkage. Part A is about effort and performance linkage. Part B is about performance and reward linkage. And this is called instrumentality. And part C is about attractiveness, meaning these rewards are worth having it, or these rewards leads to your individual goals. It is called valence. Remember the name. Part A is called expectancy, part B is called instrumentality, and part C is called valence. What is valence? Valence. Where Valence? The reward for the goals. The reward for the goals is called valence. So, expectancy theory states that people put individual efforts because they think that this individual efforts is going to improve their performance, and that performance will give them some rewards, and those rewards are worth having it. Now let's take an example. Component A, expectancy. Expectancy is the effort and performance linkage, right? As I explained, effort and performance linkage. Let's take an example. If I study hard, I will get good marks. Susan, can you highlight the effort and performance from this statement? The effort and performance linkage in this statement. If I study hard, I will get good grades. So where is effort and where is performance? Studying hard is effort, good, and performance is getting good marks. Right? Now let's study second, instrumentality, which is part B, or performance versus reward linkage. If I get good marks, I'll get scholarship. So Ashley, can you highlight if I get good marks, I'll get scholarship. Can you highlight performance versus reward in this, from this statement? Good. If I get good marks, meaning this is my performance, if my performance has been improved, I'll get scholarship, which is the reward. Now part C, valence or the value of reward. I really want that scholarship because it will make me independent, it will reduce burden on my parents, I'll feel mentally secure if I have scholarship. That's why I want that scholarship. This is called the value of that reward. So remember, just Daniel, the expectancy theory says that when people expect that their effort will improve their performance, and that improved performance will give them some rewards, and that rewards are worth having it, people are motivated. Right? So this is expectancy theory. Now let me conclude what we have studied so far. So we studied, this is chapter number 11, and it's about motivating and rewarding employees. And we have studied 3 learning objectives in today's lecture. The first learning objective was about define and explain motivation. So motivation is the process, it is the internal drive, it is the internal stimuli that triggers 3 things in your behavior. First of all, the internal voice, the internal demand, the internal stimuli that triggers energy in your behavior. Second, it gives the internal drive that gives clear direction to your behavior. Third, the internal drive, the internal voice, the internal stimuli that sustains your behavior is called motivation. So motivation is the internal drive that triggers energy in your behavior, provides direction to your behavior, and sustains your behavior is called motivation. Then we have the early theories of motivation. So we have 4 early theories of motivation. The first early theory of motivation is called Maslow hierarchy of need. So the Maslow hierarchy of need is presented in a pyramid shape, and Maslow said that first of all people should complete their basic needs such as sleep, food and water. And once people complete the basic or physiological need, people are motivated towards achieving safety needs. And once people achieve safety need, people are further motivated towards achieving social needs. And once people achieve social needs, people are further motivated towards achieving esteem needs. And once people achieve esteem needs, people are further motivated towards achieving self-actualization need, which is the highest level of needs as per the Maslow hierarchy of need. The second early theory of motivation is McGregor theory X and theory Y. McGregor says that there are 2 sets of employees in an organization. The first level of employees can be categorized as X type of employees, which theory X explained, and the other type of employees are referred to as type Y, which is explained in type Y or theory Y. So the X type of employees are those employees who do not like work. They don't like responsibility. And type Y are those type of employees who like work, who like responsibility. So type X requires strict motivation and strict control. And type Y requires lenient control because they are already motivated to work. The third early theory of motivation is called Hasberg two-factor theories. So Hasberg explained two factors, hygiene factors and then motivators. And he explained that hygiene factors are those factors that brings dissatisfaction at work. And motivators are those factors that bring satisfaction at work. So as a manager, your job should be to fix hygiene factors. Why? Because it dissatisfies your employee. So if you fix hygiene factors, you remove dissatisfaction. But remember, removing dissatisfaction does not mean bringing motivation. In order to motivate employees, you need to add motivators. So in simple word, to cut a long story short, Hasberg two-factor theory says that fix hygiene factors, it reduces dissatisfaction. Add motivators, it brings satisfaction. The fourth early theory of motivation is called McLellan three-need theory. So McLellan said that three needs, and those three needs are need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation motivates an employee to work. Then comes the contemporary or the modern theories of motivation. So we have three present day or modern theories of motivation. The first one is goal setting theory. As per the goal setting theory, it says that, it alludes that, it explains that, it highlights that when the goals are specific, right, you have clear, measurable, quantifiable goals, you accept those goals and you show commitment towards those goals, it brings motivation. The acceptance, right, the acceptance and commitment of goals bring motivation. And this motivation is affected by two external factors: self-efficacy, your internal drive, and national culture. Then you should have regular feedback for your goals. Regular feedback daily, weekly, quarterly, biannually, annually, because it keeps you on track. And if you are on track, you can achieve higher performance. Next, equity theory. The equity theory says that as an employee, you can face three possible situations in front of you. First, equality. Second, under-rewarding. And third, over-rewarding. So the element or the position in which you feel equality, meaning that your input and output is equal to the input and output of another employee, you feel an equitable position. This position motivates you to work, and vice versa. The last theory of motivation as per the contemporary theories of motivation is called the expectancy theory. So the expectancy theory says that when people expect that their efforts will increase their performance, and this increased performance will bring some rewards, and those rewards are worth having it, people are motivated to work. And the expectancy theory is divided into three paths: path A, path B, and path C. Path A shows the linkage between effort and performance, and it is called expectancy. Path B shows the linkage between performance versus reward, and it is called instrumentality. And path C shows attractiveness or balance, right? So that's it about chapter number 11, motivating and rewarding employees. Do you have any questions from this? Do you have any question from this, these three learning objectives? Any question? Alright, so if you do not have any question, okay, so you can read this fourth learning objective as your homework, and I will be discussing it in the next class. So you can read it before the next class, and you can discuss it in the upcoming class, right? So let's take an attendance, and then we are good to go. W03, right? Valir? Iris, Andy, Evangeline. Evangeline is absent today. Lavender. Okay, before I forget, remember that you have your quiz number 2 on next Wednesday. Next Monday, I will be giving you a revision, and then you have quiz number 2 next Wednesday, right? So don't forget it. You still have a quiz. Owen, Patty, Harris, Yale, Phoenix, Arya, Becca, Bella, Harriet, Sihan Chen, Sienna, Chloe, Serena, Sam, see. Laura, Jay, Jing Rong, Agnes, Nikki, Ocean, Daniel, Rufen, who is absent today, Yuri, Mori, Chuyupan, Ryan, Sally, Selvin, Serenity, Wiki, Susie, Hilda, Tristan, Rui Van, Alex, Heinrich, Amanda is absent, and Ashley, Eva, Ani, Junyan Yin, Phoebe, Jaden, Daisy, Tiago, Erin, Chloe, and Abel. Alright, thank you so much, and see you next Wednesday.